is the Tak Seng Pawnshop, located in the city center next to Senado Square. It has two elements, one is the tower and one is the shop front at the street level. Once this was a prominent tower that could be seen from far away, but nowadays, because all buildings grew quite tall in the vicinity, it's very difficult to see it, and for us to be able to see it, we need to come to an elevated level. So as we can see, it's really embedded in the urban fabric of Macau. The shop is connected to the street at the street level, and then in the back part we have the tower that is for defensive purposes, to store precious goods, and it makes life very difficult for people to be able to go inside. So as you can see, the windows are very narrow. It's really a defensive fortress in the form of a tower. We are now inside the Tak Seng Pawnshop tower. So this is the defensive side that we were discussing. So there's a shop in front where people would pawn their goods, and then they would be stored inside the tower. So this tower works as a storage facility, and it's almost like a wooden cabinet full of floors and stories where the precious goods of different people that would pawn their goods would be stored, so that they would not be accessible by people trying to rob. So that's why the pawnshop towers are separated from the pawn shop, and that is why they also have very narrow windows, so that even if people try to access from the outside, it will be extremely difficult. And even on the daily basis, in the daily operation of the shop, there will be a very big separation between the shop and the tower, so that the goods would be well protected. So this is a shape of a banking structure before banking was common practice in Macau. This is the inside part of the Tak Seng Pawnshop. This is the shop part. I'm at the counter where the owners would face the clients and where they would negotiate. So this is an elevated level compared to the ground level, so that the owners of the pawn shop could be in a commercial advantage position towards the people that are coming. And as you can see, this is heavily secured, so that this space is separated from the shop part. And this is where the transactions would take place, where the business would be made, and then this would be transferred into the pawn shop tower in the back. Cheong Tai Pawnshop is located at Avenida de Almeida Ribeiro, intersection with Rua dos Mercadores. This pawnshop is quite different from the others, as it's blended in the architectural surroundings. So the shop front part and the tower, they try to blend with the architecture of the vicinity. So we can see that instead of having narrow windows, they have normal windows as the surroundings, of course in this case with cages. So the key idea is that it doesn't look so much as a defensive structure, but more as a commercial building. This is the Tak Sang Pawnshop. We are now in the back alley that separates the pawnshop tower from the neighboring buildings. So as you can see on our right-hand side, the structure is made of granite, and then we have the building that is built in bricks. We have these very narrow windows for air circulation, but so that people cannot go through. So this creates this narrow lane around the entire pawnshop tower that prevents fire to spread from neighboring buildings. It also makes it more safe, as we have this kind of buffer area, so that it makes it much more difficult for people to go through and to be able to go inside the defensive structure. We are now at the first floor of the pawn shop, the shop part. On this part, as you can see, there's a gap to the lower floor. So this allows the owners of the pawn shop to have a control over the negotiation and to really understand what's happening and to be protected on the upper floor. And we can also see the elaborate detailing on the windows, on the roof, the bricks that made the walls. So it's a traditional typology that is quite well preserved and quite well detailed.